I'm Suzanne Barron, with founder of Illuminati Exposed. You can purchase my book on Amazon. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching it on Facebook, follow. I'll say this over and over. I'm sitting here thinking about what happened to me on Olean's Lane, and what made me look insane. The things that I went through, accusing my neighbors of housing women under my house, little things, made me look sick. But it didn't matter before I started figuring this out, and when I moved on to, like, it started with the women and children. I really did hear them call my name. I really did. They called my name to help them, that they were getting raped, and it's not real. It didn't happen. But that's how the demons created the havoc on me. And linked in with that was a Gangstalking effect. I thought that the neighbors were watching me because I knew something. I'd pull into my yard and everybody would honk their horns. It always made me feel like they were warning each other that Suzanne's here. And the horns really did honk. And I know I heard them. And, maybe that was like a voice, hearing the horn. Like there was a time I heard radio, or like the police sirens in my car. And there was a day, there's many things that happened. There was a day that I was sitting in my yard, and everybody just pulls in my yard at the same time. And I'm like, whoa, and it made me feel scared. And you just begin to get that Gangstalking effect. Now I want to jump around for a second. I want to talk about how we know the Spirit of God works. We know that the Spirit of God will speak through people to us. He will use people to say little messages to us, spiritual things that are like signs to us, positive things. He'll speak through humans and give us positive things. And if God can do that, Satan can do that too. We don't always understand like how that works. And the person who's speaking to us, even in the Spirit of God sense, they don't really know that God is using them for that purpose. But the person who hears it is like, okay, that's God talking to me. Okay, that's God talking to me. God's trying to tell me something. God's trying to tell me something. And you start listening to that, and you go in a direction that you feel like God wants you to go. And none of those voices, none of those things are like making you feel paranoid or anything like that. But we who have suffered, they call it schizophrenia. We hear the voices. We've seen more things than just voices. We've seen people actually act things out, and that's why we get paranoid, right? We've seen things, and if we think about, like, you put in a big group thing, that's where the Gangstalking effect comes. But in reality, nobody's trying to hurt you. Those people don't even know, just like the Spirit of God speaking through those people that give you positive direction, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know. Maybe they're caught in a sinful life, and so that they're, servants to Satan. And so, just like God will use a servant of his, Satan will use a servant of his too, right? So I remember there's a day that I thought there was a man, if I'd never seen him before, but somebody had spoken to me about him, and I saw him, and I thought he was like the ringleader or whatever. And I pulled out. I had to go through somebody else's yard. You call it a right-of-way. I have to drive through somebody else's property to get to my own property. And I leave. And this man follows me all the way down to the gas station. This friend of mine lives next to the gas station. I pull up there. And the guy drives over to the gas station, pulls in, jumps out of the passenger side of the car, comes across the street, and I'm here to ask this friend of mine for a safe deposit box key that I had him hold for me, because I trusted this man. He's an elderly man, and I wanted him to hold my extra key so I didn't lose it. And I went to go pick that key up. And when he gets out, he crosses the street, he hears me ask this man for a key. He turns around and looks at the driver, and he says, "A key." I'm in like complete paranoid zone. Tell me if anybody's ever experienced something similar like this. I know what I just heard. I've never met this man in my life. Why does he even care that I'm getting a key from my friend? Like, what's that have to do with anything? And now I'm like thinking he really is part of this thing, because he was chasing me. They out there on my property knows that I know what's going on. And so now they've done told the ringleader that that's the girl. She's done followed me. He's done followed me all the way down by the gas station. He wants to know what I'm doing over here. And he turns around and tells the driver of that vehicle that she's here getting a key. I know what I heard. He said a key. And then he walked over to me and he said, oh, I thought you were such and such. Okay, maybe he really did think I was such and such. Maybe he told the other person that that's who she, maybe just call her Meg. I can't remember the name. And so he turns around and said, oh, she's trying to get a key for you. Megan's trying to get a key. He thought that I was somebody else. Now, that could be coincidental, right? That could be coincidental. That man really just thought I was somebody else. Or that could be a spirit of Satan working through this man to cause anxiety on me. It's invisible. So that would be paranoia. And people would say this coincidental. But for the person who's experienced the havoc, you've seen quite a bit of stuff. And it creates this in you. And I don't believe that was coincidental, because later on, learning more about this dude, because I didn't just leave it alone, right? I didn't leave it alone. I investigated. I wanted to know who this guy was. I started asking people questions. I found out that he's living a sinful life. Therefore, the spirit of Satan would use him. Why did he just pull out immediately? And it all sounds really crazy. It all sounds really insane. It sounds like a schizophrenic person. It sounds like somebody's high. All those things, it sounds like that. But I wasn't high. I wasn't high. Millions of people do suffer with this and never even touched drugs. Yes, I've had drug history in the past. And so there would be this whole, well, that was a long-term effect of drugs. Well, if that was the case, then how did I beat it? Because I've never taken medication. And I understand it now, right? I'm not seeing these things like that anymore. I had to remove myself from the situation. And I understand it now. I understand what happened. I had a friend. I'd seen some things between us, right? Not like I'd heard some things and I'd seen him act some things, and you cannot take back what you see. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you hear it, and then you witness that what you heard actually take place after you heard it, not in the opposite order, then you know that that's definitely something spiritual, or something is actually really happening. And doctors can't pinpoint that down because they're not living your life. The cops can't understand because they don't see it. Nobody can see it but you. That's where the gangstalking is. You research gangstalking and it becomes like this thing where it's like nobody can see the things that are happening to you except for you. You're the only one who can see this, who can to put these things into action. And you wonder, why is everybody conspiring against me? Why are these things happening to me? Well, David experienced that too. King David, he thought the whole town, the government, everybody was conspiring against him. Every Jew and Pharisees and Sadducees, they all conspired against Jesus. But they really did conspire against Jesus. It's a spiritual war, man. It really is a spiritual war. And Satan will cause havoc on your life. We know this. And it is what's the word I'm looking for? A typical thing to say that if you're living a simple life, you're going to be caught in oppression and suffering. That is still true. That is still true. But you have to understand that they've got control of you. And it's not as simple as the church is saying, make a good choice, make the right choices. Because when you're chained to a bad behavior, or you're chained to addiction, or you're trapped because of your family or your life situation, and even if you're trying the best you can, and for some reason you just can't get out, that is really not like a choice. You want out of the situation, you try to do your best, things keep falling, and you're fighting like hell. Nobody can understand it. Might be jumping around a little bit too much, but I still struggle today. Like, I still struggle with my mind. They've been in my life for a very long time, these demons, and they have placed images in my head. They've placed emotions in me that I have to literally fight them every single day. All day, every single day, I fight with Satan. And yes, I still hear the Spirit of God in me. Yes, I do. Jesus heard demons, didn't he? Each day I make a better choice, and I've learned this the hard way. Better choice, the easier it is to hear Jesus, the Spirit of God. When I am torn and teared, and you feel like you're going, you got a choice or whatever, and you're being pulled in a direction, and you really know you should not be going there, and like you're going and you're walking it, and you're like, man, I shouldn't be doing this, but I shouldn't be doing this, and that's like the addiction. That's what happens, or bad behavior, or like bad job choice, or whatever it is, and you should not be doing it, but still you're going with it anyways, and it's like you're second guessing it. That's a bad decision. And when you make a bad decision, it's harder to hear God because you're trapped. You're chained. And it is a war inside of you. And it's not something that you can easily speak, that people will completely understand. Especially when you're going through what seems like a psychotic break to the world. They will put you on medication. But you see these things. I know I saw that man, and it seemed coincidental. But that doesn't take back the fact that I've seen other things. I heard a voice tell my friend to do something, and then immediately following, he would do it. And I'm like, who told you to do that? Who told you to do that? Why are you trying to hurt me? There's a lot of people out there that experience this. I'm not saying that these people aren't trying to hurt you sometimes. What I'm saying is, to really dissect it and make sure that that's really what's happening. Because I accused a lot of people of some really bad stuff. I accused them of housing women and children and raping them underneath my house. I had a computer that chattered. I thought they had a two-way on it. I had a cop hear my computer. A cop, an officer, he actually heard my computer and he thought that that was weird. He actually opened up a case. I gave him the names of my neighbors, and I blamed my neighbors for doing this to these women because the land was theirs before I bought it. Of course, it would make sense that there's a bunker under my house. Mind you, all over town, people are talking about bunkers buried all over the city that I was in. That's the spirit of Satan talking through them, talking to me through them so that I would believe that this town would have bunkers hidden all over the place. Not just one person would say that. Multiple people say that. You ever been around people, for those people who have suffered, and you heard one person say it, and then you go to another house and then you hear the same thing, and you go to another house and you hear the same thing, and you're like, that's weird, right? And it becomes paranoid. You can start to get paranoid because what they're saying is kind of harmful. But the same thing happens with the Spirit of God too. We hear a positive message come from somebody. Later on down the day, we hear it again. We're like, well, that's weird. It's coincidental. We hear it again. That's weird. And then we start to think God's telling us something. And we don't get paranoid. And we listen to that. And we're like, that's God. And we follow that direction. But that happens from the Spirit of God. The same thing happens from the spirit of Satan too, but it causes havoc on your life. There's going to be a lot of people that understand what I'm saying. For those who have experienced it, you will understand. For those who have not experienced it, you can think I'm insane or psychotic. It doesn't matter. Because you're not the ones I'm trying to reach anyways. Not with this message. Although I am still trying to reach you. Because I need the cops, the doctors, the psychologists, the security guards who deal with people that are locked in medical, that hear voices and they're screaming at the top of their head. And how many of them stay in the jails for 6 to 8 months and they're sober and they never get any better? As an officer, a correctional officer, have you ever seen their or I don't know, it's like doctor confidentiality rules or whatever, but have you ever asked them? Have you ever asked the patient? Have you ever been on drugs? 90% of them are going to say yes, okay? But there's going to be a select few that's going to say, I've never been on drugs before. I knew a girl in jail once. Her name was Catherine Salisbury. I got her paperwork right here. Actually, I got some paperwork. Letters that she wrote to Satan. She told me, she said, she never used drugs. She said, I've never been on drugs. She sit there and talk for hours to somebody. She was talking to Satan, and she knew she was talking to Satan too. And she said, unless somebody's experienced the devil, they'll never believe that you have. For those who are suffering, you are suffering because you are experiencing the devil. The voices that you hear are real. How many times that there might be a spiritual person in your life that told you maybe you're listening to demons? Nobody ever told me that. I wasn't that bad off. I owned a business, land, 2 vehicles. I was doing fine. I do believe it was my surrounding area, though. And maybe I was living a sinful life. Was married, sleeping with another man. We were separated, but, God doesn't intend for that. I hustled a little bit. Stole a little bit. Had drugs in my past. Turned my life around. I'm just heading in the right direction now. I see God for what he is now. And I hear the voice of Christ. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 3. Paul says, since you seek proof that Christ is speaking in me. He heard voices. Voices are real. And they are spirits. And if you got havoc in your life, that's Satan. If you can beat Satan, you're left with the ability to hear the voice of God. I hear God. All right.